Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. Yes, Brian, we're all good.
All good.
Okay, great. All right, we're going to kick this off. So we're really glad you're here. For those of us that joined us last time, welcome back. If this is your first session, we're very excited for you to be here. And this is part 2 of a 3-part series that really is designed to help business leaders and IT teams navigate AI confidently, not just from a technology perspective, but also from a governance and a security standpoint as well. So our first session, which was AI Demystified, is all about cutting through the noise, right? Understanding what AI is and what it isn't, and how it's already showing up in the tools that we use every day. Today, however, we're going to shift that and we're going to talk about AI readiness and lean more into strategic and how to prepare your organization for AI, not just by turning it on, but by getting your data and your people and your security ready to use it and support it responsibly. Quick little bit about me. I've been in tech for over 20 years. I have a background in computer science as well as an MBA. So my job is really to help kind of bridge that gap, right? And between the technology and the business worlds. I like to make sure tech is actually working for you and not the other way around. We don't want tech to work against you. And I've done everything in my career from starting as a dedicated technician all the way to being a chief information officer at a regional healthcare center. So if you've got questions, I'm here for them. I also have a colleague on the meeting with us today, Brian French, who's going to be monitoring the Q&A. So throw any questions that you have in there for us. Brian will interrupt if the question makes sense, or again, to tell me if I'm on mute. And we'll either dive into them right away or we'll wait until the end and we will answer everything. We should have plenty of time at the end to dive into some questions. So a little bit about Anchor. We are a Denver and a Kansas-based IT firm, and we focus on partnering with small and mid-sized companies that really see the value that technology can bring their organization. So we do everything from help desk support to strategic planning to fractional CIO support, and we wrap it all in this nice blanket of security, which is highly important in today's world. And this is not a sales presentation. I am most certainly not a salesperson, but we would love to visit with you if what we talk about resonates. And if you're looking for a new firm, or maybe you just want to check up on your existing IT provider, I'm going to have my contact information in the last slides. So enough about that. We will dive into the content. All right, so for the agenda today, we are going to start with the risk of rushing and how so many organizations are really kind of moving faster than their governance can keep up, and what can go wrong when employees start to use AI tools without clear direction and oversight. Then we're going to get into building guardrails, not walls. This is where we shift from risk to empowerment and how to create a structure that lets people innovate safely. And we'll touch on steering committees, acceptable use policies, really how kind of simple awareness training can make a difference. And from there, we're going to go into compliance, really staying compliant in this AI era. And this is going to be pretty practical, right, of how to make sure your existing compliance frameworks like maybe HIPAA or SEC really kind of extend naturally into AI. And we're going to talk about how it looks to utilize tools like Microsoft Purview, which is a good tool that can help you with your data. And then finally, we're going to kind of bring it all together with from chaos to clarity, right? This is going to be our roadmap of a step-by-step path that we like to utilize when we go through AI readiness. So this is kind of a crawl, walk, run, and then anchor model. And it's about turning your ideas into action in a very controlled and confident way. And then we'll wrap up with questions, kind of next steps, and let you know what this part 3 of our series is going to look like. All right, so starting at the beginning, the biggest challenge that I think we're seeing across almost every industry is AI adoption is happening too fast, right? In many cases, it is happening faster than companies can actually build the policies and controls to manage it appropriately. Employees are using AI tools because they want to be more efficient, right? All wonderful, great things. But without guidance, that efficiency can actually turn pretty quickly into exposure. So this is why we're going to take a look at why slowing down just a little bit and helping set that foundation can actually help you move faster in the long run, and how if you skip that step, you're actually going to be putting your organization at real risk. So we're going to start with kind of the rush, right, which is what we've all seen. AI taking off faster than most organizations could ever plan for. So things like tools like ChatGPT, Copilot, GitHub, they are being used every single day and often before leadership even realizes that it's happening. The challenge here is that adoption, again, is outpacing the security and the compliance. It's not that people are doing anything wrong, it's that they're trying to work faster and smarter, right? This is great, we love this, but when you don't have governance or boundaries in place, the data exposure can happen before you even are aware that there's a problem. And what we're starting to see is that employees are using AI without understanding what information is being shared, where it's stored, and even how what you put in as prompts that it's learning from you. And so regulators are really starting to take notice, and they are starting to really scrutinize AI usage, right? So especially those within healthcare, finance, and government, they are taking notice, and we are starting to see things come out from a regulatory perspective. And governance isn't optional when it comes to AI, right? It is not meant to slow you down, or it's not meant to slow innovation down. What it's meant to do is give you control and confidence as you move forward. It is a very foundational part of really safely deploying your AI tools. So what does this look like in the real world, right? We've all heard stories, or you've probably read articles, right, about someone putting sensitive information into ChatGPT or some kind of AI tool. Maybe it's client information, maybe it's code. Samsung had that happen to them. Maybe it's PHI, protected health information. And once it's in there, it is instantly outside of your control. So that is what we consider uncontrolled prompting. Once that data leaves your environment, you cannot get it back, right? Next is really overly broad access. So this is when AI tools that people are using have too much permission, right? So they can pull data from anywhere and everywhere, from SharePoint, from Teams, from OneDrive, from your local drive, from anywhere that it can have access to, it is pulling all of that data, especially areas that it really shouldn't be seeing. So without role-based access and proper data classifications, which we're going to get into here in a little bit, it can actually surface information to the wrong people. So a great example of this is something that happened with a client of ours, where someone within HR created a folder under a shared access or a shared library. Totally fine. We don't regulate that. You can create a folder. But then they copied and pasted actual payroll information into that folder. Again, leadership didn't know this. We didn't know this. How would we? It's just data that's sitting in that folder, right? It wasn't recognized until somebody got access to that they shouldn't have, and saw it that they shouldn't have. This is a great reason why when we talk about data classification, that it's so important, because AI is going to crawl your network and crawl your data and pull everything back. So when somebody says, I'd like to see the salespeople's salaries, and it finds it in a folder that you didn't even know existed, it's going to spit that information back, right? So that is where data classification and access, role-based access, is so important, and why this is one of the real-world kind of consequences that we see a lot, is that overly broad access into your network. Next is a lack of review. So another big one is, if no one checks or validates the AI's responses, then decisions can actually be made that are based on wrong or biased information. And there's also this kind of new-ish term out there called work slop. You can argue this isn't anything new. People have delivered sloppy work from the dawn of time. But with AI, it is definitely more prevalent. And it's really what we're seeing is just employees taking the first thing the AI gives them without any thought or review or adjusting things, right? And submitting it as the gospel truth. The next one is no audit trails. So if we can't trace back how a decision or a piece of content was created, this can become a huge problem if you are faced with some type of an audit or investigation. And we work with several private equity firms, and this is something that's been kind of a hot topic, right? We've been talking about this a lot, is how does SEC regulations and guidelines really apply to AI? And if they were to be audited, can they show how something was produced? Was it done through an AI tool? Was it an actual employee? And where did this data come from, right? So all great topics of discussion, and something that I think anyone that is under a compliance umbrella should really be thinking about. And finally, you see misaligned expectations. So kind of similar to that lack of review, but users tend to trust AI way too much, right? They assume that every output is correct, when in reality, AI is only as good as the data and the context that we give it. So remember, AI is not human, right? It's simply learning and producing through the data that it can see. And we review this a lot. We reviewed this a lot in that first session, so I don't want to rehash it, but AI can and does, they do hallucinate, and they make things up. The scary part is that when AI does, it acts very confident in the results, right? So I tend to think trust but verify. It's great to use AI. I use it every single day, but I want to verify that the data that's coming out is actually accurate and is in line with what I expected to see. So when you look at this group, right, of kind of real world consequences and the risk of rushing, these aren't necessarily technology problems. Some of them are, but it's more of a governance issue and it's a human nature issue, right? So the good news is that these are all 100% completely fixable. The examples of data leaks, of unapproved tools, of AI pulling from places it shouldn't, right? Sometimes it can shift you into thinking that AI is to be feared or we're supposed to really lock this down. But the truth is that that's really not the answer, right? Like I said, this isn't necessarily a technology problem. This is a management problem. And it is how we manage the tool that we need to really start to dive into and figure out, which is what the next piece is going to be here. The good news is that every one of those risks, right, it can be prevented if we put the right structure in place. And that structure doesn't have to be complicated or restrictive. In fact, I do like to say that governance doesn't really build walls, we're building guardrails. Okay, so guardrails help keep people safe. They help give them room to explore and innovate and use AI in a very responsible fashion. So what does that look like? What are the guardrails that we should be doing? The first one is governance. And when we talk about governance, a lot of people, I think, immediately picture red tape, restrictions, right? This giant no sign. But governance isn't about walls. It's about, again, guardrails. And we're building these guardrails to let your organization innovate safely and not recklessly. The goal of those is to define who can use AI and how they can use it and what data is fair game. And that clarity is going to give your people freedom to explore because they know right where kind of those edges are. And I'm guessing most of us on this call are from some type of small and mid-sized business. You might already have what we usually call a technology steering committee, but even if you don't necessarily call it that, I would venture to guess most of you have a small group, maybe it's leadership, right, that helps make technology decisions and kind of helps guide you along that path. What we want to do here around the guardrails is just expand that steering committee into the AI space. So you want to make sure that this group is intentionally discussing AI and starting to build out what is okay and what is not okay inside your organization. And this will look different for everyone, right? It greatly depends on the type of data that you hold, the industry that you're in, compliance, regulations, even your budget, right? You might not have the budget to add in multiple tools. So all of that combined is going to make this committee and talking about AI so important, right? To just make sure that it aligns with your organization. And the point is that you don't need to form this brand new steering committee. You just need to take the group that you already have and really expand it into that AI oversight. Part of that oversight, and one thing that you should have in place, is an AI acceptable use policy. So my recommendation here is do not create some massive new program or process. You should already have some type of a general acceptable use policy. If you don't, that should also be on your checklist. But work on just expanding that out to include more around AI. AI is here to stay, right? It's not going to go away. It is part of your technology. So now why not just build it into that acceptable use policy? And again, you're just expanding what you already have. There are a ton of good templates out there. So if you haven't started or you don't have any kind of policy around this, please don't feel like you have to start from scratch. I just want to ensure that, one, you have it in place and that you're also reviewing it and adjusting or tweaking things as needed, because AI's pace of change is just staggering, right? What we're talking about today is different what we're going to talk about tomorrow. So don't just create it and stick it on a shelf. You need to create it and have that committee that we talked about prior really kind of look at it and adjust it as needed. And finally here, I want to say, look at some trusted frameworks. So the biggest one that I tend to look at is the NIST AI risk management. So this is designed to help organizations really of any size, right? Think through fairness, transparency, accountability, and security. So even referencing that you're looking at the NIST management tool is really going to show that your company is being very intentional on how you manage AI. And since this was a framework that might be a little bit new to some of us on this call, I thought it'd be good to dive into, since it, again, can be a good guide tool. So real quick, just kind of high level, the framework was developed by National Institute of Standards and Technology, that's NIST, where it came from. It's the same agency that gave us the cybersecurity framework. A lot of companies use it and rely on it. We do at Anchor. And the AI version, not very old, it was released early 2023. So we're looking at just a couple years old. The goal of it is to keep things simple and to really help organizations develop and use AI responsibly. So again, in a transparent and fair and trustworthy way. This is not about coding and algorithms, right? This is about managing risk, and this is about building trust in the AI platforms and the data that it actually produces for you. So the framework breaks things down into 4 functions. The first one is govern. So govern is all about accountability. Who owns the decisions and the policies? Let's define that, right? Get those set. This is where leadership gets involved to really make sure that AI use is aligned with your values and your compliance needs. The next one is map. Map helps you understand how AI is being used and where the data that it relies on. So just like what it says, you're kind of mapping it through your network and through your data. This is where you document your business purpose, you identify your risk, you classify your data. You're really mapping out how, when, and where AI can be used within your organization. Then you're going to measure. So measure is all about checking performance and accuracy, making sure that your outputs are actually reliable, not biased, right? You're just checking that no new security or privacy issues, maybe for your organization, has popped up. And then the last one is manage. Manage is the ongoing oversight and improvement, right? It means continuously monitoring your AI tools. It's reviewing how they're performing and adjusting really as regulations or technologies evolve. What I really like about this framework is that it's very practical. It scales down beautifully to small and mid-sized organizations, as well as scaling up. And it's used as a guide to really help you build kind of that first AI policy. It shows a commitment to doing it responsibly. Looking ahead, what we're expecting to see from NIST is they're already working on a version 2.0 of this framework, and it's expected to be released, I think, next year sometime. This is going to more than likely include a deeper guidance level around AI governance and human oversight. And the thought here is that this risk management framework is actually going to have kind of an intersection with the cybersecurity framework, which it should. So that'll be, I don't know if I should say exciting to us in the IT world. That'll be exciting to see. But we're also seeing early alignment with international standards. So I feel like over time, we're going to see kind of this global baseline for how to use AI responsibly. All right, onward. Empowering people. So even with the best AI policy and the most informed and wonderful AI steering committee, you still won't protect you if your people don't understand it, right? Employees are going to be, are 100% are your biggest asset, but they can also be your biggest vulnerability. Most AI-related incidents are not coming from hackers or malicious code. They are coming from well-meaning employees who just don't know what's safe to share and how to double-check an AI's response, right? So this is why people need very clear and simple guidance. And training does not have to be this big formal thing, right? I firmly believe sometimes less is more. Short internal sessions, team meetings, clear examples, right, of what you should use, what you shouldn't. Knowing when to ask for guidance, like just that alone can be really important and valuable. And really you need to teach your staff what data can be shared and what absolutely is off limits. So give them access to those tools, but make sure that you've got security enabled. We encourage you to treat AI like you would an external vendor. So I feel like this kind of can be a check for staff, right? if you wouldn't email the information you're about to put in an AI prompt outside of your company, then maybe you should pause and think about if it really should be going into whatever tool you're using, right? 100% your tools need to be vetted and they need to use actual tools that you approve, which we're going to get into here in a minute. But just that question alone, right, I think could help save a lot of companies. Again, if you wouldn't email it outside your company, then let's not put it in some kind of unprotected AI prompt. And when your team understands kind of the balance of both the potential that AI gives them with the risk, they really now become part of your security posture, right? And they're no longer a liability. And this is really building that culture of awareness and responsibility and empowerment, right? Not fear. You want your team to feel very confident in using the tools very responsibly. And when people understand the rules, they stop seeing them as restrictions and they should switch to really see them as support. So I encourage you to empower your people to not shy away from the potential risks that they give you, but again, to educate them and to build that culture of awareness. So once you've got your people and your governance all aligned, right, next step is ensuring compliance. And this is where mapping AI use to the rules that you already live by is very important. One of the biggest areas that organizations struggle with, however, is their data. And the truth is that you can't protect what you can't see. So this next section is going to be all about visibility and understanding kind of where your data lives and how it should be accessed in some tools. So again, I said, you can't protect what you can't see. So for most companies, your data is very foundational to your organization. However, I would also venture to guess most companies don't have a complete picture of where their data actually lives anymore. And this is just the nature of the world we live in, right? We're in such this hybrid model that it makes it very difficult if you can to figure out where your data is, right? It can be in any number of locations, and then you throw some shadow IT in there, which is really nothing more than staff using tools that you don't even know that they are. And it makes it very hard to kind of wrap your arms around everything and understanding where that data is. So identifying where it lives is going to be your first step. Is that a server? Is that in the cloud? Is it SharePoint, Dropbox, Teams, right? Your information is probably a little bit scattered, but if you can't see it, you can't protect it. So you have to identify where your data actually lives. The next step is AI readiness, which is really to find your data and then to classify it. So this simply means you're identifying what is public, internal, confidential, and regulated. Once you have that done, then it becomes a lot easier to make good decisions about what data should safely intersect right with AI tools and what data should never be in that environment. You can also assign ownership, who is responsible for those data sets, as well as addressing like duplicates, outdated data, right? If you're regulated to keep 7 years of data, don't keep 10, right? Let's make sure that we're making our data as clean as it possibly can be. It's just going to help you in the long run. And one of the best tools to help you is what Microsoft calls Microsoft Purview. This is already a part, if you are in the Microsoft ecosystem, which most businesses are, you more than likely already are paying for this. It's bundled in with your licensing. So if you're already using Microsoft 365, you probably already have access to Microsoft Purview. Purview can automatically scan and label and protect your sensitive information, whether that is in email or Teams or cloud storage. Think of it like turning on the lights in a dark room, right? Once you see what's there, you can actually kind of manage that risk more intelligently. So this step isn't about, again, buying something new or putting in something new. It's about using what you already have and bringing your data really more into focus. One thing that I will mention though is this piece, while it's one slide, actually two, we'll talk about Purview again here in a minute, but it takes a long time. It can be very difficult to really go through your data and clean it up and classify it. So just keep that in mind. Purview is a great tool and it can do some things for you automatically, but it's not perfect. So you will need some human interaction to really ensure that the classifications are correct and that the data is very organized. This is a good diagram of what really Purview can do for you. And if you are, I'll take a step back, if you're a Google shop, so if you use the G Suite, they don't have anything specific like this, but you could use Google Vault. They also have a cloud sensitive data protection, I think, tool. Not exactly the same as Purview. They're a little bit more siloed, where Purview is designed to really kind of pull everything together. There's also other tools out there. I just demoed one from Mimecast called Insider. Very cool tool. I really did like it, but it also comes with a pretty big price tag and a 50-person minimum. So there's just all of that to say is you've got options. There's other things you can do. With most people being in the Microsoft ecosystem and with this already being a part of the licensing you purchase, this is why we tend to lean towards the Microsoft Purview to help you map your data. But if you look at kind of the circle that it talks through, you've got information protection, information governance. The information barriers is going to be like your data classification. Insider risk management is actually kind of cool. This can show you, through like trigger words and things that it's activities it's seeing whether or not somebody might be an insider threat. E-discovery, legal holds, and then data loss prevention. So it is kind of a beast of a program. It can do a lot for you. But overall, it is really designed to be data governance and compliance and a compliance tool. So it's a good one to keep in your back pocket and something that you can really use for the data classification piece. All right, so here's the good news is that compliance really doesn't get harder just because AI is in the picture, right? It's the same rules that you have always been following. If you're HIPAA, SEC, GDPR, right? Or maybe you're just doing your own internal policies. What AI does, it just changes the where and the how that data is actually processed. So a simple mindset shift here can help, right? AI doesn't necessarily replace compliance or make it difficult. It just extends it, right? So you just need to make sure that what you're already doing is extended into those AI platforms that you're going to be using. Every tool that your team uses should 100% be vetted, just like any other piece of software you're going to bring into your network. Ask if they're SOC 2. Make sure that their data handling aligns with whatever industry requirements that you have. And then the next one is to stick to approved tools only. And this is something that must be clearly communicated to your staff and that they need training on, right? So if you're using Microsoft Copilot, ChatGPT Enterprise or Business, those are all great because those platforms are really built with more enterprise grade controls, but you 100% want to avoid personal accounts or free versions because they just don't offer the same security and archiving that we would recommend for a business or an organization. Keep your documentation simple. I think a one-pager really can have a lot of weight, right? It can be used really well to kind of show how we're using AI and what kind of data we're protecting. And it can be, I think, again, more powerful than people realize. It can show intent and oversight and responsibility, and it's not this big, long policy that you're requiring everybody to read. When in doubt, I do use what I call kind of that email test, right? If you wouldn't email it to an outside company, then maybe let's not put it into AI. So just kind of that simple question to kind of keep your people grounded and really to focus on protecting your data. All right, last section, we've almost made it. So we've talked about how AI doesn't replace your compliance requirements, right? It just simply extends them. The rules haven't changed. It's just that technology has. And so when you think about it, that's actually really good news because it means you probably already have the foundation built and you don't have to start from scratch. But knowing the rules is really kind of only half the battle, right? Now the question is, how do we actually put this in action, right? How are we actually going to use, it's great that we've cleaned up our data and we've tightened our policies, but how do we use AI that actually drives real value? And what does that kind of roadmap look like? Every organization, though, is going to be very different. You're all going to have different use cases and you're all going to have different obstacles to overcome. But what I want to show you next is really kind of just a step-by-step roadmap that can help you go from uncertainty to clarity, kind of one stage at a time. And we break it down into 4 areas: the crawl, walk, run, and anchor. And it's good to understand that AI readiness is really a journey, right? But the path doesn't have to be complicated. I'm a firm believer in simple is better. So the first one is crawl. This is about awareness, right? Before you dive into AI projects, take a look at where your data lives. Who has access to it? What security gaps exist? Work through that classification step. As awful as it can be, it is so key to making sure that you are not inadvertently sharing data that you shouldn't be sharing. This is also a good time to spot what I call shadow AI, really the unofficial tools and accounts that maybe employees are already using, right? So start with the assessment and start with the cleanup. Next, you're going to go into walk, right? This is where you're building your governance. You're starting with that acceptable use policy. You are giving, staff training. You are identifying the tools that you want to use. So in this position or in this place, you could easily give them access to the Copilot version, to ChatGPT, right? Make sure it's business or enterprise. Figuring out what those tools are. Then you're going to put AI oversight into your technology steering committee. And this doesn't have to be kind of a formal or heavy-handed thing. It just means, right, that you're creating a place for AI conversations to actually happen. Next is run. You're going to pilot safely. So this is your pilot phase. You're going to choose 1 to 2 small, low-risk use cases. These can be as simple as automating meeting notes. Stop manually taking meeting notes. Summarizing client emails, generating draft reports, looking through reports, right, to give you summaries back. Keep the data exposure limited and measure what happens. What were the results accurate? Did it save you time? What new risks appeared? And then one thing I don't want to overlook is encouraging your team to think bigger, to innovate, to bring ideas around how they think they could use AI to better the organization. And don't forget to reward those that do. We talked in the first session about the fear of AI, which can be a big barrier to adoption, right? And you need to be very intentional about the benefits that AI brings and how it's not necessarily just to reduce staff, right? We're looking to increase efficiencies. We want to free up time so that you can do more meaningful work, right? Leadership has to be the one that promotes this and promotes those innovative ideas, encouraging them, and then rewarding them from staff. And then finally, anchor, my favorite stage, probably because of the name. This is where you operationalize AI safely across your teams and where you're expanding where AI fits, right? This could be creating agents. This could be thinking through long, complex workflows that take a ton of time and how you can fit AI in there. This is where you really start to expand into those use cases and start to deliver more ROI on the ideas that you're getting back from staff, right? And you can do this securely and with some peace of mind because you've already done the assessment, the cleanup, the governance. Your data is safe. Now you're starting to dive into more things that you can do, but you can't do that without doing the first few first, right? And if you jump them, then you're going to have a lot of complex issues and potentially some security issues. So when you follow these steps, AI adoption, I feel like, stops feeling like chaos and you kind of start getting some clarity and some progress. Remember, it is about progress, though. It's not necessarily perfection. All right, next steps, an invitation. So I know that this can feel like a lot. You've got your data governance, compliance policies. There are teams out there that can help you. Obviously, Anchor is one. We have helped dozens of organizations kind of take that first step towards AI safely. And that can mean different things. It can be different projects. It can be helping you with your data classification and helping set up Microsoft Purview. It can be helping draft that first acceptable use policy. It can be workshops or use case delivery use case discovery. And this is where kind of you can slow down and make sure that you're doing it right. So, find your AI readiness partner. If that's Anchor, I'd love to talk to you. But if that's your current MSP or another person that find somebody that you can partner with, and just start with some intention around it. So speaking of intention, this is where this idea of a use case workshop came from. So most often Anchor is working kind of one-on-one with clients on this, but I thought it would be interesting to kind of pull in a small group of people and work through ideas, right? I firmly believe kind of ideas breed ideas, right? So I wanted to try this concept with a small group. If you're listening to this today, or if you signed up for this and maybe you're listening to the recording, please feel free to reach out. The next slide here is going to have my information on it, but we'd love to kind of see if we could get a handful of people and run through this use case workshop. So again, we are going to invite you to come with a handful of ideas, and I want to have enough time for everybody to really kind of talk through those ideas, how we can take them from conceptual into some practical steps forward to getting them actually in your organization. So key takeaways from today: AI readiness isn't just about racing forward to get the new fancy tools, right? It's about preparing your people and your data and your security so that AI actually works for you and it doesn't just open up more risks. So thank you so much for joining today. I hope that you leave with at least a few good nuggets and maybe feeling a little bit more confident in the next step. So with that, I am done. I will leave this up on the screen for a bit. Brian, any questions that I can help answer?
We do not have any questions in the queue at the moment. If anybody's got any, feel free to get those entered in and we can answer them as they come through.
And you're always welcome to, again, reach out through email. I also put my LinkedIn on there, so feel free to let me know that you saw this and send me an invite and we'll connect on there as well. All right, no brave souls, no Q&A today. We will call it good. Thank you all again for taking some time to spend with us today. Truly appreciate it. And again, reach out if you have any questions. Have a good rest of your day.